इसमें पोजीशनल 3 रहेंगे उसमें
मीटिंग नहीं हेलो माइक से मेरी आवाज आ रही है आप सभी लोग को?
हाँ जी मैम, प्लीज कंटिन्यू.
Okay, thank you, sir. A very good morning and welcome once again to Indore Institute of Science and Technology on the second day of 3 days online faculty development program on innovative research methodologies for challenging problems of future in science, technology, engineering and management, organized by RGP under TEQIP 3rd at the Department of Engineering Sciences and Humanities, IIST. After yesterday's very enlightening sessions, today we proceed in the same with more enthusiasm and high learning spirit. So without wasting time, I would like to extend my warm welcome to our today's speakers, Dr. Ekta Agarwal. And first, I would like to introduce her. Dr. Ekta Agarwal is working with the prestigious Institute of Indore, IIM, as an assistant professor in mathematics department. She has done BSc from Lady Shri Ram College for Women, University of Delhi, and done MSc and MPhil from Center for Applicable Mathematics, Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, Bangalore. After that, ma'am has completed her PhD in Applied Mathematics from the same college. Ma'am has presented her papers in many international and national workshops and conferences and got many of them published in reputed journals as well. She has delivered many expert talks and lectures. Research are partial differential, hyperbolic conservation laws, theories and numerics, numerical analysis, mathematical models, and scientific computation. Ma'am has scholarships like National Talent Research Scholarship in 2001, National Board of Higher Mathematics Scholarship 3-month research visit to Brown University in 2011. She is also the recipient of various travel grants from funding agencies to attend workshops, schools, and conferences in India and abroad. She has won the Student of the Year awards various times in school and was also awarded tuition fee waiver in class 10th and 12th for being the school topper. On the behalf of IST, I'm pleased to welcome you, ma'am, and it's a really pleasure to have you with all of us. Now I request you to please review your lecture, ma'am. Over to you.
Thank you, Professor Namrata, for the introduction and inviting me to be one of the speakers for your FDP. Since this is the new normal, so we are, I think, going to continue with this online mode of imparting education and training. And I'm very happy that IST is one of the first few institutes who has shown initiative for this tele education in the space of FDPs.
This conference will now be recorded.
So I also appreciate all the attendees who are working from home now and are showing enthusiasm to attend these kind of teleconferences and tele FDPs. That indeed shows that we have, as a community, grown and adjusted with the available resources to fit into the new normal. So I am speaking about all these new normals because it turns out that since we are talking about research methodologies and my area of, I'm an applied mathematician. So actually I'm working on something recently which talks about teleworking, and we are doing machine learning algorithms to see how the community as a community is adapting to this new normal. So we are kind of combining psychology, we are combining HR and mathematics and machine learning to come up with a mathematical model. And since I'm in that mode, I thought that I would just start with saying a few words about it. So of course, that's not the topic for our discussion today. So what I'm going to talk about is more on the lines of how do you look at a problem if you are an applied person, and how do you choose problems, and if you choose a particular problem and if something fascinates you from the applications, then how do you end up building a mathematical model and do an algorithm development for the same. So I have been always applied mathematician. So I have never been trained in physics, or in fact, in Lady Shri Ram College there is no science as subsidiary, like we have physics and chemistry and BSc. So I had a BA mathematics where we learned economics and not science as many of the bachelor people do. But it turns out that most of my work is actually related to physics and finance. So so I will be showing you how we think about the problem, how what fascinates me we turn into a mathematical model, and so on. So this work I've been working on such kind of things since 2007, like whole of my PhD and my postdoc and even my current work always aligns with something from physics, or currently now business or telecommuting. So I'm bringing machine learning into my work now, but I'm not going to talk about machine learning today. I'm going to talk about more from the point of view of mathematical modeling and what kind of algorithms we make. Okay, so I hope everyone is able to see my screen clearly. It's okay if you're not able to see me, but you should be able to see my screen. So I hope if someone is facing problem, just raise your hand or put in a comment. Yeah, so the title of my talk is Mathematical Modeling and Algorithm Development for Real Life Problems. So when I say about real life problems, it's the problems which you see in daily life. So what I am going to concentrate on is more about traffic flow and sand dunes, or sand formation of sand piles and beyond. When I say beyond, I will be discussing about where else you can do similar kind of modeling. But as we are all from Indore or MP, or let's say India, we know that traffic flow is a real problem here. So we see traffic jams and traffic collisions and clogs and so on. So my postdoc work was on designing mathematical models for traffic flow, and we were working with the French government to propose them a mathematical model which they could use in their own studies. So I will be starting with that. So before going to a specific problem, so since we are talking about research methodologies here, so if you are interested in solving an applied problem, maybe from physics or chemistry or maths or business, so first thing to do a PhD, or I mean, what drives one to do a PhD, as one of the speakers pointed out yesterday, is not about that I don't have a job, so I will just do a PhD. A PhD should be done by a person who is interested in finding out answers. He should be as curious as a 5-year-old to find answers about the things which he doesn't know, or to answer the things in the theories where there are gaps. Or even if there are not gaps, are there any fundamental questions which were taken for granted and he feels that he should answer it, or someone should answer it for them. So that's the major calling for PhD, and not because that there is a grant attached to it and for 5 years I don't have to worry about a job. So so as an applied person, and as most of the world is driving research towards applications which are concerning the community. So first, you should not look at a real life application which someone tells you to look at. You should always be able to, I feel that one will always be able to excel in something which interests him, right? So it should be not only interesting to the community, but it should be interesting to you. Then only you can contribute to it. So that's first thing, look at the real life applications which interest you. And you may be fascinated by aerospace, how planes fly, why there is so much of traffic in Indore, why people don't know how to drive, or analytics. I mean, analytics is a buzzword of today. So what do I do with this data? How can I plan my business well so that I know that from 4 to 7 p.m. some of the only the students visit my cafe. So can I use that data to run campaigns, to give proper marketing strategies? So analytics is a huge field. It's a tool, and you can apply it anywhere you want. So the problem at which you are applying the analytical tools, or you're learning to apply the analytical tools, should be the problem which drives you, right? So these are some topics which drives me, but there may be some topics which drive you. So first you have to select the topic which drives you. Then you should see what kind of mathematical knowledge fits here. So when I say fits here, so you are interested in a problem. Okay, that problem is why there is no life at Mars. But then you are not trained to find why there is no life at Mars. So the problem which you interest you you should be able to fit your mathematical knowledge, or your physics knowledge, or your chemistry, bio, business knowledge, whatever kind of knowledge you have, you should be able to fit it in that space. Otherwise, you have to do another PhD or another master's to solve the problem, and that's not a problem if you want to do it. There are people who do multiple PhDs and masters, but the point is that if you're looking at solving a problem, it should be in the domain of what mathematical knowledge you have. And if you are lacking on something, suppose you want to apply data analytics, but you're not trained in data analytics, then you should first, before attacking a problem, you should always get trained in the tools which you want. So there are various courses online. There is Coursera is full of free courses. Many people are offering free courses nowadays. The education is becoming, as we say, the new normal to have the courses online. So you should always learn the techniques before you before you work on a problem. It's not the reverse. So unless your basics are clear, unless your fundamentals are clear, you will not be able to contribute in solving a new problem, because it's not like 1 + 2 = 3 karaya, or next question area, what is 3 - 2? That is not research, right? So no, it's not going to be as simple as that. So you will have to find gaps in the existing knowledge. You will have to expand the existing knowledge, apply the existing knowledge to solve a new problem. So you should first be very clear. And nowadays, when you talk about physics or chemistry, business, whatever, 4 pillars are very necessary. You should, as someone was pointing out to me in the lecture yesterday, that mathematics is a fundamental pillar of all the research methodologies which come today. So mathematics, you should know coding. If you are a data-driven person, if you want to do analytics, you cannot do it without math, stats, and computing. There is no point. Data entry is not data analytics. So you have to know these 3 pillars well. If you look at complicated physics models, or the physics models which drive the problems, there is always maths behind it. So maths, you have to be clear with the fundamentals of mathematics. So the next thing is, after you know that what mathematical knowledge fits you, and you have also decided an application, you have made yourself reach there in the mathematical knowledge or the physics knowledge where you want to be, then you should do a literature review. And the literature review should also look for the problems. So always the research problem is solved. It's not that you pick up $1 million question and you start tracking it. You should always divide your applied your PhD problem or your research problem into various small fragments, and you should always try to solve the easiest fragment and then move on. If you move it the other way around, the top to bottom approach, then it will not work, because you may not be able to solve that problem, but you may be able to solve the ladder. And if there is one more thing, so some people believe that unless I solve that top problem, I should not submit my paper, or I should not submit my research. That way you will never be able to submit your research. So you should always try on giving small contributions, meaningful contributions to the small fragments, and then fragment by fragment, you solve the big problem. And if it's okay, if that problem may not be solvable, which you have thought, but you have contributed to various small fragments, right? So your literature review will help you in deciding that how many small fragments have been solved. It's not, literature review does not mean that you have to read every paper which comes in your view, but you should be able to gain a lot of insights from the intro and the abstract. Intro of a paper always has a lot of knowledge. A well-written paper reviews, the intro of a well-written paper will always review whatever has been done. So you should always do your literature review as honestly as possible, right? So fill the gaps by extending existing knowledge and algorithms. So once you have done literature review, you know the gaps in the fragments, or you know that the fragment has been proven for, let's say, A to K, and I can extend that fragment from K to Z. So then you should always use your existing knowledge from your previous steps to extend that fragment for a more general case. And your algorithm, once you have a fundamental algorithm, you will know, if you have done your algorithm well, if you know the shortcomings of your algorithm, you will always know that where my algorithm can be extended, right? So you should always write your codes in such a way that, if you know how I always keep saying, a 5-year-old kid, right? So you print and give it to a 5-year-old kid, a 6-year-old kid, he should be able to make changes in that code without your interference. It should be very user friendly. Otherwise, if you write a code for your own reference, and if you hire a PhD student or hire a collaborator, and as someone was pointing out, research always happens by collaboration. So always your codes and your LaTeX files or your Word files, wherever you type, they should be in such a way that it's possible for multiple people to work on, right? So that goes for typing, that goes for writing codes, that goes for doing a literature survey, that goes for everything, right? So I did not end yesterday's lecture, but I'm not sure that whether it was covered that when you collaborate, how do you manage your workspace, right? That's also very important. So knowledge of the advancements in computing helps if you're working in applied problems. So it's not necessary that you should know computing, but if you are an applied person and you want to be aligned with solving the real life problems, so all real life problems, even the mathematics cannot solve all real life problems, because in real life problems there are lots of parameters, and when you do mathematics or physics or chemistry or any science for that matter, there is generalization, there are a lot of simplifications which are done over the real life problem in terms of parameters, right? So if you want to test your problem, that if it's working for with the real parameters, you may not be able to solve it on paper, but you may be able to write an algorithm which can simulate that problem, and you can test your the results with the existing empirical results which are given by engineers or civil engineers or physicists or whatever. So if you want to bridge that gap, then you should know computing, or your PhD student should know computing, or your collaborator should know computing. So in one of the members, or at least more than one member of the groups should know computing, so that you are able to bridge that gap of testing that whatever you solved is actually physically applicable. Okay. So I think I have made myself clear here. Do I have any questions at this point? Because this was more of a general way of talking about how to solve an applied problem. Is there do you have any questions here, or can I go ahead?
Ma'am, you please continue. You can continue, ma'am, please.
Yeah. Okay. So, before going ahead, so I will show you what drove me to solve the problem which I'm going to present. And living in India for 30 years before going to France, and this is not an Indian problem the traffic is not an Indian problem actually. The traffic is a global problem. Crowding is a global problem. So we want to solve something like this. I will be showing you a video, and this is where your fascination starts, right? So this is the fascination level. So let's see. So this is so we have two crowds of pedestrians in a crowded counter floor. So you have a column, you have a small, when you have barricades or when you have constructions going on, there is a small lane through which two sets of crowds have to move towards each other and cross through that column. And what this simulation will show you that how the pedestrians will tackle or will adjust themselves to move across this column. So let's see. Yeah. So you see that this is the column which they have to cross through, and there are people who are walking on both sides, and you see that how these people are making lanes. They are giving space to each other. So to avoid clogging, people are turning, people are making their ways, they are not moving just bang into each other from left to right. They are turning, so their velocity vectors are changing. If you see this green part, their velocity vectors are changing. They are giving ways to each other. So this is something called as lane formation. So they are trying to form lanes so that there is no clogging. So if you think about it as two fluids, so you see there is some clustering here. People are making ways, but people are stopping for the other people to let go in. And this is like a real simulation. I mean, when I say real simulation, there were webcams, and we recorded it. It was recorded through the simulation, and then it was coded in the computer to show this simulation. So you see that how people are adjusting themselves, and there is no clogging. And if you realize that we have such kind of problems in temples, in big gatherings, in political gatherings, and so on. So, for example, you will see such kind of problem there is a Hajj, if you know, in Abu Dhabi, and you see how many people gather there, right? So if you have your exits of the exits of the temple, or whatever the patriotic places, if you plan the exits well, even we don't have to go to Abu Dhabi. Even we have that Kumbh Ka Mela, right? We had in Jan a few years back, right? So government had put in a lot of efforts. There were researches done that how to plan the exits of the Kumbh Mela, right? How many toilets should be there, how far they should be there, how many exits should be allowed, how many entry points should be allowed. So all this was planned so that there is avoidance of clustering, there is avoidance of clogging, there are no accidents, and so on, right? So in mathematics, or in let's not in mathematics, in this whole phenomenon is called crowd dynamics. And what happens is, so we know that, I think everyone must have heard that no matter can be created or destroyed, right? So you have people who are coming in, and whatever they do, the self adjustment, we assume that no one gets killed, right? We assume that no one just gets lost. They are not vapors, they are not going to disappear. So you have to conserve the mass. So if you are assuming that they are fluid, and the mass is their integral over the domain where they are traveling, so the mass has to be conserved. The mass cannot get lost. And so what I have done is I've taken a physics problem. It's not even I've taken a very real life problem, and now I want to associate, since I'm a partial differential equation person, or even if I'm a physics person here, everyone uses conservation of mass, right? Conservation of momentum, conservation of mass. So this is a very fundamental physics tool, right? And the whole the whole community of this world, the whole life of whatever we see around, thrives on this concept of conservation of mass, conservation of energy, right? So this is called conservation law. So it's a mathematical, or even physicists study this. I am not a expert in chemistry. I don't know whether chemists studied, but I assume they study, because you have to talk about movement of electrons and so on. So this is called conservation law. So what does conservation law say? So you have a space. So what I did is I took a physics problem, I took a real life problem, and I brought back to the knowledge which I know. And since I am a PDE person, I am an applied mathematician, I am trained in conservation laws. So whatever problem I take, it has to fit in conservation laws, or at least I will try that it fits in conservation laws. And the crowd dynamics, the problem which fascinated me, right, is a very relatable problem, because if you take applied maths problem or an applied physics problem, it has to follow this conservation of mass, because conservation of mass doesn't know problem. Conservation of mass just knows that the mass needs to be conserved, whatever you take, right? So what does conservation of mass says? Conservation of mass says that you take a domain omega, forget about there is omega, and then there is a physical quantity u, which is defined at all points in this domain. And then so what do you want to say? That you want to look at the time evolution of this u in this domain, and the time rate of change of this physical quantity u in any domain d of omega is equal to how much u goes out, how much you goes in, plus or minus how much support you are giving, how much sink you are giving, or how much source you are giving to this system. Okay, so how much matter you are entering more, and then how much it is how much it is going out of the domain, and how much it is coming in. So it is dependent on that net movement or net flux of this u across the boundaries. This is my boundary, right? So I write it mathematically. So I say, okay, my total mass of u is this integral, and I want to see the time rate of change of this u over this domain d. So this is the mathematical term which expresses it. And then this is equal to the net flux. So the net flux is across the boundary. So I integrate along the boundary, and this is what I'm inputting more to the system. So I use some mathematical concepts like Gauss divergence theorem and so on. And I say that since it's true for even a small infinitesimal element of omega, therefore I have something called as ut plus divergence of f is equal to s. This is called a balance law because there is a balance between the source which I'm inputting in, and on the left side I have the net change of u. So it's called balance law, or if s is 0, which is there in most of the physics problems, it's called conservation law, as the only change in u is on the account of the quantity which is entering the system or leaving the system, because my mass is conserved. So the whole PhD or postdoc of mine is, my problems are always come from conservation laws, right? So I mastered myself in conservation law, and now I pick up problems which are solved by it, right? Not exactly solved by it, but then you have to extend your knowledge, you have to extend a theory bit here and there, you have to extend your algorithms. But if you don't know the basics of conservation laws, you cannot amend them, right? So this is called conservation law, and the conservation law states that the only change in u which happens is on the account of quantity entering and leaving on the domain of your interest. And now it has numerous applications. You can apply it in sedimentation, granulometer, movement of sand dunes, movement of formation of avalanches, how are icebergs formed. Everything is related, it comes under sedimentation. You can also apply it on polymer flooding. Polymer flooding is the science of extracting oil from the petroleum oil from the ground, and this is called polymer flooding. And the polymer flooding is based on conservation law. The whole science of it is based on conservation law. So CFD, how aeroplanes fly, how fluids flow, why do you have heart attacks, how much pacer you should put it in your heart. Everything is again, based on the hyperbolic system, on the conservation laws. Biological systems. When I talk about biological system, I say about, again, various things related to your body, the movement of the blood, how your neurological system works is again through conservation law. In management, supply chain management. So supply chain management, for example, if your luggage is on a conveyor belt, then how much traffic will be there on the conveyor belt, for example. That also is driven through conservation law. Then these are more physics application, magnetohydrodynamics and elasticity and combustion. Blood flow and cell motion we have already talked about. Cluster or flock formation, that is if you see the movement of the birds in the sky, there you see some of the birds form flocks, and they have particular shapes, to when they fly in the air. Or even if you see in sea animals, so you must have seen videos where fishes are moving in flocks and making beautiful patterns. So everything is driven by conservation law there. Again, network traffic, which I will be talking about. Supply chain management, it's come again, I've already talked about it. Road traffic, jams, tolls, how much how many people, so if you are talking about a toll, there should be how many points of collection for money, that basically how many exits and entry points should be there. So that also you can, model through conservation laws. And what we are going to talk about is how I propose, how we work around it for the problem of crowd dynamics. So what is a crowd dynamics problem? So you have highly crowded areas where, there is a need for safety. If you let people walk in and walk out how they want, what happens, right? There will be disaster management, there will be disasters, people will there will be stampedes, people will not listen. You have seen, I think people would have seen the condition at this Ujjain Shiv temple, right? So what is it called, the what is the temple called, I've forgotten the name. So the Mahakal one, the Jyotirlinga, right? So in the Ujjain, so you see that even if you are paying extra and you're the VIP, you're in the VIP lane, still people push, still there is a clogging even after so much management, right? So if you just allow people to flow as they want, it can lead to stampedes and disasters. It will help you in structural engineering and architecture, again the same point, for tracking the exits and the entries. Then transporter systems, spectator occasions, political demonstrations. So if you are doing a political demonstration, if you are having rallies, you should be able to plan your rallies well, because you have to manage that how many people are again entering and leaving. So basically the point is that in crowd dynamics, the whole science is about managing the width of your columns or the width of your passages so that there is no clogging, there is no stampede, no one gets killed. It can help you in planning prior evacuation strategies, for example, in movie halls, right? In movie halls, in malls, you see, right? So this all is based on crowd dynamics, so that there should not be any clogging at any point of time. And now we are talking about COVID-19 and the cities opening up, the countries opening up. So these kind of problems even make more sense, because you have to plan how are you going to manage the crowd once you open the lockdown, right? So for example, you should read about, in Germany there was a love parade disaster in 2010, and what happened there actually. So you see that there is this tunnel, and how many people you see here, right? So these kind of problems are real, and it's important that we plan the evacuation strategies in such a way so that we can avoid such things. So let's come to so this is the whole fascination part, and I know that I have to use a conservation law strategy to model this. And so in my postdoc work, we actually created models for these evacuation strategies, or for the two crowds to cross. So for example, let's start with a simple model. So you have, so we call it macroscopic model, because we are fluid dynamics people, we are not probability people. So what happens, what is the difference between a microscopic model and a macroscopic model is, in macroscopic model, you assume that there are, if you have like 1,000 people in a room, or even 1 lakh people in a room, you are assuming that all of that is a liquid, it's a fluid, right? So you are saying that I'm not going to track what each person is doing, I am going to track what my fluid is doing. Okay, so you do some mathematics and you say, okay, my people in domain omega is equal to the integral of rho xt, and your rho xt is your density. So your crowd is a continuous fluid, you describe it by the density rho xt, and now the people in the domain omega are equal to the integral of rho over this domain omega, right? So now you already have converted your people into rho, right? And now what is to make it in the conservation law, you just need to give it the flux, or that you need to tell how should it move, right? So you have rho, you have again a rho here, if you see here, and there is a velocity vector v which is telling it in which direction it should move, right? So this, if you compare it to the first slide we saw, so this is typical conservation law. I have not done anything, I have converted my people into liquids. The liquid is, I've told liquid that you should move in this direction v, and I am set, because this I know how to deal with, right? But what is the difference between my knowing conservation laws and coining this model is that I don't know what is velocity vector v. And the whole science now, the whole your PhD is velocity vector v, right? So to define now to define this velocity vector v, I have some intuition, right? Because I see people moving on roads, I see people crossing each other. I have been to a lot of temples, so I know that my temple exit is going to tell me that should move in a specific direction. And if I see people in front of me which are very close to me, I will just try to bend my lane, right? That is what was happening in that YouTube video, right? So what I do is I tell my system that you should prescribe a priori, you have a path which I denoted by new vector. You can denote it by your favorite letter. So this is your prescribed vector path. And now what I do, I introduce a second term in which I tell that you should avoid high density. And how to divide high density? I look at the velocity gradient, right? So that is your gradient of rho. And now I convolve. I don't know how many people are aware with this word convolution, but the point is that convolution says that as a human or as a collective fluid, I have an eye angle, right? And how do humans work, right? You are going to see around you, right? So you have an eye cone. You are going to scan around you, right? Till a certain point, through a certain angle, right? And once you see a particle or some part of the fluid in your eye cone, you are going to slow down. You're not only going to slow down, you are also going to turn, deviate a bit. So that's what it says, that if you see, so this is what this convolution does. Okay, so it says that this is my velocity vector, this is my convolution, which is just going to tell me, look in your eye cone. If you see some other person, slow down, right? So if you don't see any person, move in the way I told you to move. If you see some person, deviate a bit, right? So this is what was done in Colombo's paper by Rinaldo Colombo, and what they say is that you design your velocity vector v in such a way that it can tell the fluid to deviate from the prescribed trajectory to avoid entering regions with higher densities. Okay, they did this for one population, one crowd, only one fluid is moving in the system. And what we are interested in is in more complicated systems. What I was interested in more complicated system, I should correct myself. So you have now two crowds which are moving towards each other, and I'm basically interested in modeling the video which I showed you earlier. Okay. So what we do is we try to extend the model. So what I knew is conservation law. What I knew is Colombo's paper. I did my literature review and I got to know about Colombo's model. And now what my job is that I want to extend these two combination to a new problem which fascinates me. And I'm not fascinated by one crowd. So if I'm directly fascinated by 100 crowds, I have to come back to first two crowds. Then I have to come back to one crowd. One crowd I saw the work is already being done, which is by Colombo. And then I want to extend that model to two crowds. Okay. So what I do is, okay, I say, I'm going to, so there are two crowds. So there's too much maths on this slide, but I mean, I will explain you one equation, and the second equation is just copy paste of the another one with the U1 replaced by U2. Okay, so there are two populations, U1 and U2. And what I am supposed to do is I want to track the movement of capital U1 and capital U2. And capital U1, let's look at this term. Okay. So you have been given that Namrata ji, hello,
Yes, madam.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who are leaving. So I mean, how much time do I have?
Ma'am, 10 to 15 minutes more.
Okay, because I don't know, I see people regularly leaving, so it's okay, right? I don't have to bother about that.
Oh, okay, ma'am. You
There are
continue.
a lot of people. Yeah, there are a lot of people who are living continuously. So I just want to tell you that I didn't know whether I was talking to a screen or there were actually people there.
No, ma'am.
Yeah.
You continue. Yes, I'm seeing.
Fine, okay. So what I do is that I have been told that U1 should move with a velocity vector V1, right? So this is this V1. And if my U1 is 0, so of course, if U1 is 0, it does not move, because if there are no people, they will not move. If I have a room full, so when I have a room full, I mean my maximum density can be 1. So if my U1 is 1, there is too many people, there is no room to move, so I don't move at all, right? Therefore, I have this scalar factor which is multiplied, so that if there is no crowd and if the room is full, there is no space to move, then U1 doesn't move at all. Okay, but then what now? So now there are two crowds of people moving towards each other. So this is a question to audience before I tell you what I'm doing here. So I would like someone to answer that if I have two crowds moving towards each other, then how should I plan my model so that I can do what the video was showing? I don't need mathematics. I need a common sense answer or an English answer, let's say, to say that you have two crowds, U1 and U2, moving towards each other. And you have already given them velocity vectors कि U1 को left से right जाना है और U2 को right से left जाना है. अब मुझे कैसे इनका movement change कराना चाहिए so that there is no clogging. And it is based on what I just talked in the last slide. So I would like someone from the audience to answer this. If people are there.
Okay.
मेरे पास दो क्राउड्स हैं U1 और U2. जब अकेला U1 था तो वो लेफ्ट से राइट मूव कर रहा था. उसको दिखा कि अगर कोई मेरे आसपास है तो आई विल स्लो डाउन एंड आई विल चेंज माय डायरेक्शन. ठीक है. अब आई एम सेइंग दैट इंस्टेड ऑफ वन क्राउड आई हैव टू क्राउड्स. So in what way I should plan my model so that there is no clogging? Do you get my question, what I'm trying to ask?
Yeah, we can use a superway or highway like structure like in America. That means we can make a separate lines structure for every line.
Yeah, but that's how many structures should I plan? Suppose there is no structure in the middle. Suppose there is no separate divisions. You're saying that I create separate division in the column. So then I'm changing the vector field, right? Because मैं उसको बोल रही हूँ तुमको इसी लेन से जाना है. पर इसी लेन से जाना है तो मैंने उसका वेलोसिटी वेक्टर ही चेंज कर दिया कि जो मैं उसको पहले से बता रही हूँ. मैं उसको पहले से नहीं बताना चाहती हूँ. मैंने उसको बता दिया पहले क्राउड को कि आपको लेफ्ट से राइट जाना है. दूसरे क्राउड को बताया है कि आपको राइट से लेफ्ट जाना है. तो अब मॉडल इस बात को कैसे कैप्चर करेगा जो कि असली में होगा? मॉडल को क्या करना चाहिए कि वो असली बात को कैप्चर करे? असली बात क्या होगी? पहली बात, जब जो दो क्राउड क्रॉस कर रहे हैं तो वो क्या करेंगी? इसमें कोई मेरे पास वो नहीं है. अगर मैं बीच में आपके कहने पे जैसे अमेरिका या अब्रॉड में होता है
speed, we can reduce the speed of one line and increase the speed of other line.
Will you reduce or the system will reduce itself? So if you have two crowds, will they themselves reduce the speed or?
We put some symbol like structure. Your speed is below 5 km/h and another screen for other sites. You should take your speed up to 20 kilometers.
Okay. So the crowd cell, or you are linked the crowd to do it. So there is a physical phenomenon which will already happen, and what I want to do is I want to put that physical phenomenon in the velocity vector or in the flux, right? So I'm asking what will obviously happen The crowd does not know, right? There is a mathematical model, right? So I'm asking that if there are two crowds, what will they automatically do? So you're right. I mean, you are telling me what to do in model. I'm asking you what will the crowds do to themselves without knowing that there is a model. Sorry, I cannot hear you. Hello? What's your good name? Who just answered me? Hello?
Ma'am, voice is not clear.
मेरा क्या आपका? I just want to know who is the person who just answered me.
Mohammad Azhar Khan.
Okay, Professor Khan.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Professor Khan, you are still there?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, you got my question? You're thinking?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Is there
yeah.
anyone else who would like to try? No?
Hello,
Yeah.
ma'am. Can speed be a function of a density of people
Yeah.
in model?
Yeah. Speed can be right. Like I have made, right? If you see the previous model, the speed was a density of a function of the density. Yeah, you're right. It can be function of density. Yes. So what will you do with this function?
As we reduce the speed, as density will change. If density will change,
Hmm. So what were we doing? Okay, so I think you may be able to answer this question better if I show you a video. Okay, let's see a video. Okay, so wait a minute. Yeah. So yeah, so I will just tell you the background of this video. Yeah. So there is this crowd. Okay, I will just take you more back. Okay, maybe 1 second. There, yeah. So you look at it's the same problem which I told you to think about. So there is this red crowd here. So when I say red, the heat map shows that the density is full. There is no space to move here. And so this is a column. This is like a room, a typical structure of a movie hall, right? So you have people who can cross horizontally, and you have people who can also take the exit option or the entry option vertically along the movie hall, right? So there are these people who have to move from left to right, and there is another crowd of people who can move from top to bottom. So this crowd on the left cannot go up. This crowd on the top here cannot move left or right, right? And now I will tell this crowd that you should only move to the left, and this crowd is only allowed to move to the down, right? And now let's see that if I whatever model I'm going to create, or whatever model you were suggesting me, if we do apply to this problem, what will happen? So you see what's happening, right? So this crowd started moving here, and then by that time this crowd U2 has also come down. And now you see there is a red portion here. It means the crowd U1 is waiting for U2 to go down. So there is a clustering here. And then near the U2, there is this blue region. It means no one is banging their head into U2, right? So whenever there is a clustering here, you see there are a lot of people of U1 here. There is no one of U2 here. Do you see that? Right? So these people are auto-adjusting themselves to so that the U1 exits from the right and U2 exits from the down. You see, let's see. You see? And now most of the people have exited. There are only few people left here because they were slow. They are slow because of the presence of the alternative crowds. You see? And now they have exited, right? So what has happened here, that people who could have just exited by banging into each other, they have auto adjusted themselves. So they slowed down. Not only did they slow down, they also deviated from their own paths, looking into the eye angle of their own, right? So they saw that अगर मेरे crowd का कोई है तब भी मैं slow down होऊंगा, अगर मेरे दूसरे crowd का कोई है तब भी मैं slow down होऊंगा, right? So let's see that what happens. I will do one more simulation. Yeah. So now in this example, I have जैसे वो गरबा करते हैं, right? So you have one crowd, which is, let's say I will show you the photo first. So you have one crowd, which is all the people are concentrated in the circle, right? And then there is another crowd, which is standing outside that circle in the annulus, right? So what this middle crowd wants to do, it wants to go out, dance करना है. तो ये जो बीच वाले हैं उनको बाहर जाना है और जो बाहर वाले हैं उनको अंदर आना है. ठीक है? So it's like the prescribed velocity vector field of the first crowd is to from center of the circle to out, and the prescribed vector field of the second crowd is outer of the circle to in. Okay, जैसे dance में होता है, right? So now say I apply the same model and let's see what happens. So what's happening you see here? So अंदर वाले लोग बाहर जा रहे हैं, right? इस वाले पिक्चर में तो बीच में ऑलमोस्ट जो है वो खाली हो गया क्योंकि ये वाले लोग इधर चले गए हैं, बट इधर बहुत सारा क्राउडिंग है बिकॉज यहाँ पे ऑलरेडी दूसरी क्राउड के लोग हैं जो कि अंदर आने की कोशिश करते हैं. जहां जहां इधर रेड है उधर इधर ब्लू है, जहां जहां इधर रेड है उधर ब्लू है, क्योंकि दोनों लोग एक साथ नहीं रह सकते, राइट? बिकॉज क्लॉगिंग हो जाएगा. नाउ यू सी हाउ so now you see this what has happened now in this picture. So now जब वो सर्कमफ्रेंस पे पहुंचे हैं, सर्कमफ्रेंस पे पहुंचने के बाद वहां पे भी लोग हैं U2 के और U1 के, तो हम क्या करेंगे, हम लेन्स बनाते हैं ना, हम अपनी जो सर बोल रहे थे कि हम यूएस में होता है कि वो पैनल्स लगा देते हैं, ठीक है, उनको बोल देते हैं कि आपको यहीं चलना है, तो उसको बताने का जरूरत नहीं है. अगर क्राउड में दिमाग है, अगर मेरा मॉडल ये काम कर रहा है जो कि एक समझदार सिटीजन को करना चाहिए, तो व्हाट दे विल डू इज कि वो उसको जगह देंगे जहां जहां पे ये पे U1 के लोग हैं उसके साइड से U2 के लोग निकलेंगे, जहां जहां पे U2 के लोग हैं वहां से U1 के लोग नहीं निकलेंगे. So you see the lanes which Mr. Khan was talking about, I think Mr. Khan, right? So those lanes have been self-formed by the crowd, and actually depending on your circumference or on the domain, the crowd, you can also do some mathematics to quantify or to make an optimal number of lanes which should be formed by this crowd. Okay, so you see, so now there is no one here, there is only less here, and all of U1 has almost moved out, and therefore all of U2 has almost been able to move in. You see? You see this? Right? And since there is conservation of mass, I know that no one can just get lost. So U1 का full mass आके 0 पे हुआ है, U2 का mass वहीं का वहीं है, because U1 जो था पूरा बाहर चला गया है, तो इसलिए U1 का mass complete से 0 हो जाएगा और वो U2 में चला जाएगा. Is this okay? Right? So what I have to do is that whatever my prescribed vector field is, I have to scale my speed here. And whatever, if I scale my speed depending on what I see of my crowd. If there are more people, I just scale my speed. And now what I do is that if there are other people in my crowd, I just deviate. So what do I do? Given the vector field, like I did in the, like Professor Colombo did it in his paper, given a prescribed vector field, I just deduct, I just change my vector field, I deviate from my vector field depending on the other crowd. Okay. Similarly, U2 is also going to do the same thing. So whatever U1 is doing, U2 will also do the same thing with its own crowd. So after we proposed this model, okay, so we did some simulations, and the algorithm development needs some knowledge of numerical analysis. So this algorithm is based on that. And what I showed you right now in these pictures or in the simulations is the result of the algorithm being applied on this model. Okay, so you can see so these pictures I've already talked about, this experiment and this experiment. Okay, also if you are walking in a crowded space and there are no exits and entry, this the red crowd is supposed to move from left to right and yellow from right to left. You see that again how people have deviated their vector fields. You see this blue line, it's not straight, it's deviated, and how they will auto arrange themselves. Sorry, can you please mute yourself, people? So this paper was published in Siam Journal of Numerical Analysis, and it was in 2015, and these were the references which we used. So the point is that starting from something which fascinated, you see that what is there, which is there in the literature for that, and then you try to extend that problem from the given existing literature to a little more complicated problem, and apply whatever you know already in the terms of algorithms or in the terms of mathematical literature to your model. So the model should be able to justify the physical properties or the empirical properties of the existing system. Okay, so I think I have made myself clear. Actually, I had one more model to show, but I think we are done. I mean, if I have time, I can speak more. I think Professor Namrata can tell. Otherwise, this is one model where applied. I have not been able to talk about sand dunes here. So, yeah, over to you, Miss Professor Namrata.
Rupali, how much time is left?
Ma'am, still 5 to 10 minutes.
Yes, for the question answer session.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. So now we should allow to the participants for asking their queries. Rupali?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was very nice lecture delivered by you. Now I request all the participants, please post your doubts and query regarding the presentation on the chat box only. And for this, I request Dr. Neena Thakkar to please handle the chat box. Over to you, Neena ma'am. Hello,
Thank
Neena
you,
ma'am.
Rupali. Yes, thank you, Rupali. I'm just finding out the questions. If there is any query, please put up. I request participant to put up the questions in the chat box so that we can ask ma'am to clear it up. Or till now, ma'am, there is no query, I think so. And participant, if you've got question, you can unmute your mic and you can ask directly if there is any query.
Ma'am, if there is no query, can ma'am explain the next model? So it's an interesting session.
Okay.
Okay. That will be really nice. I think so. The session is going on very well, ma'am. So they want to have continue with the session. Please do.
For one more hour, so that's okay. Because actually I prepared for 3 models, but I think I don't know. I mean, maybe.
Hello.
I'm okay, so I can continue. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah,
Yes, Namrata ma'am wants to say something, ma'am.
Yeah, ma'am. Actually, we are lacking short of time because we are having one more meeting at 12:30.
I know.
So,
yeah.
So your session is very interactive, but the participants can ask or can interact through the email, and we share your we share your.
I can put my email ID here. So everyone, my email ID is in the chat box. And I can give you my Skype ID also. So, I mean, if someone who is interested to, collaborate or, whatever, I mean, I am available, and this is my phone number. You can, Professor Namrata also has. So, you can always WhatsApp me, because it's like, we are always at home. So, sometimes my kids will be having phone. Professor Namrata very well knows that, right? So, you can always WhatsApp me. email में WhatsApp is also, because email में क्या होगा कि वो लूज हो जाएगा, कभी स्पैम में चला जाएगा, फिर आप सोचोगे मैम ने रिप्लाई नहीं किया. So please connect on WhatsApp. I'm ready to talk and explain the second model. Once the lockdown opens, since you're all from Indore, you're welcome to visit also. So we can always have a discussion in my office also. So that's okay, because I'm local. Right? So you're all from Indore, so I'm more than happy. No problem. Okay.
Nice to talk.
All right. Thank you so much for wonderful session.
Thank you,
And in
ma'am.
fact, I should. Right. Over to Rupali for further induction.
Thank you so much, Reena ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot for a very wonderful session. Now here, one request for the participant, please, you have to fill and submit the feedback form of this session, and the link will be forwarded on our WhatsApp group. Here we are ending our first half of the session. For the next session of the day, we will resume at 2:40. So please be there. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, participant.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, madam.
No problem.
Okay.
Always.
You may all now. Participants, please fill the feedback form and submit, and resume at 2:40 after lunch.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.